Himura Batosai. After watching this movie, I just couldn't stop talking like that. Rurouni Kenshin, otherwise known by its English title Samurai X, is directed by Keishi Otoma, written by Kiyomi Fujii and Keishi Otoma. It's based on the original manga by Nobuhiro Watsuki, and this movie stars Takeru Sato, Emi Takei, Teruyuki Kagawa, and Koji Kikawa. And Rurouni Kenshin takes place at the beginning of the Meiji Restoration, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, but a period of relative newfound peace after the Edo period. And an assassin from the Edo period known as Kenshin Himura, otherwise known by his nickname Batasai, the slasher, the killer. After the Edo period, he says, okay, no more killing, and he hangs up his sword, and he goes around. He's a traveling swordsman now, and he just doesn't want to kill anybody. But now there are people kind of stirring up trouble during the beginning of the Meiji Restoration, and this kind of tests Kenshin. Maybe he's gonna break, maybe he's gonna kill somebody. Now I used to watch kind of a lot of anime when I was younger. Definitely, I don't really watch anime now, but back then I remember that while I never really finished it, Rurouni Kenshin was always the coolest, like most epic anime I'd ever seen. Because it was so grounded in reality and it was really like real action and the characters and things were so just heavy really and I count Rurouni Kenshin as one of the big three anime here in the Philippines. The other two being Voltes 5 and Slam Dunk. I call them like the big three anime because they're so popular in the Philippines that pretty much everyone knows these characters. And I remember when I watched this movie, I watched it on a Wednesday early afternoon at a mall no one really goes to. And when I went there, the theater was almost full. It was amazing to see. And thankfully, it's not just a popularity thing because Rurouni Kenshin is a very well made movie with fantastic visuals, great acting, and some really, really gorgeous fight scenes. The cool thing about Rurouni Kenshin is that its setting, the restoration period, it really lends itself well to really interesting production design choices because you can take elements from both the Edo period and the Meiji period and they can still add enough over the top stuff from the anime, but they add just enough to keep things kind of realistic and grounded. It's great also because you can tell these makeup artists and these costume designers in this movie really worked hard to make sure these actors looked like the characters as much as possible. I mean, I think they really got the looks right, especially like Sano and Kenshin's classic red robe. But again, they're trying to stay grounded and realistic here. Like Sano's giant slab weapon thing, like it's definitely much smaller here, but it's great that they were able to kind of pick and choose which elements from the anime they decided to like kind of downplay just so it would be more realistic. And what's great about this movie is that it really has this heavy reliance on practical effects. There's some over-the-top elements like Kanryu's giant Gatling gun thing that obviously is CGI, but for the most part, like these are real stunts, real action happening. You really have to give it up to stuntmen because they're so underappreciated, I think, in cinema nowadays. And here they really, there's just so much wire work and stuff, but you don't see the wires, of course. But real stunts are happening, people are running all over the place. And one of the best things about this movie, in my opinion, is that the cinematography is just extremely vivid. It's very, very colorful. The first scene in particular, like when this movie opens up and you see like the last battle from the Edo period, and it's all blue and it's so cold and haunting at the same time. And this movie also has tons of wide shots. Thank you, and just kind of proves that the movie is unafraid of showing that these guys are really doing actual choreography and stunts and stuff because a lot of filmmakers will choose to shoot things kind of close up and they'll use the excuse that it's more intense, but in reality they're just kind of hiding bad choreography or whatever. And here it's really you get a full picture. And Rurouni Kenshin is definitely much artsier than you'd expect an anime adaptation to be. You'd expect it to be kind of cartoonier, but here it really is. It feels very much like another, like a normal Japanese period film. The sound in this movie is great too. The music is this cool fusion between more ethnic sounding stuff with the with the drums and whatnot, and more modern sounding things. So it kind of mirrors the restoration in a way, if I'm overreading it. And this movie has its share of funny moments also to go along with the dramatic stuff, and I think both are scored very well. In particular, when I'm talking about funny, whenever Kanryu is in the movie and plays his theme, it's very whimsical, it's very kind of light-hearted, and I think it does it doesn't clash with the dramatic stuff at all. And the battles sound great. You really feel like you're in a large scale war and whatnot. And it's great that, because Kenshin doesn't want to kill anybody and his sword is reverse edged, so only the back is sharp, but he uses the front, the dull side, to hit people. And it's great that they're able to make that sound painful because when you think about it, while it won't kill you, being hit on the head with this really large slab of metal is still gonna knock you out. So it's great that the sound was able to make that come across. And with regards to acting, Takeru Sato, who plays Kenshin Himura, I think he nails this role perfectly. He plays both sides of Kenshin so well. He's on one hand he's this kind of naive, wide-eyed guy who's just walking around. He wants to help people, and he's kind of clueless about certain things. His catchphrase "Oro." But then, of course, there's the other side, the Batu side. He's trying to kind of hide in him, and when he gets into battle mode, he really gets into battle mode, and he's so just cool and calm and collected about it. And the shift Takeru Sato does between these two sides doesn't feel jarring at all, and it doesn't really feel like he's fighting to keep it in. Overall, this entire cast really is great. Everyone does a good job. In particular, Teruyuki Kagawa as Kanryu, I think, is really funny, and like he really kind of nails the absurdity of that character. Munetaka Aoki, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, who plays Sano, is really, really funny, and he has some of the best moments in this movie, definitely. And Yosuke Eguchi, who plays Saito, just commands the screen. He is such a badass, and he's just, he has this authority about him as soon as he walks on screen. And even like the smaller, minor roles, like the actors here, they really don't make this movie feel like an anime. They never overcook it, really, in my opinion. Keishi Otomo, who is the director, really clearly has a lot of respect for both the source material and the actual historical period, because he could have chosen to go just straight base it on the source material and make it a bit more anime style, or just really put a historical slant on it, but that would be kind of unfaithful maybe to the manga and the anime, and be a bit too serious. And here I really do think he kind of hits the middle ground really well. And he's an extremely good action director also. Every single fight in this movie is staged extremely well. They're very intense, they're very, very nail-biting. They have very nice flows to them. And the kind of fighting they use here, it's kind of like a more grounded version of, I don't know how to pronounce it, Wuxia, Wuxia, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Like there's lots of wire work, people flying around and stuff, but it's very, very grounded. And Keishi Otomo's decision to really go all out with the budget, I think it really paid off, because he only had $25 million for this, and this movie looks like it's like 100 million or something. This movie looks very expensive, but it just goes to show like how resourceful they were, and just how much time and effort they put into every single thing in this movie. I do have a few problems with this movie though. Like for one, it's very episodic. The structure is it really feels like they got like scenes from the anime and just kind of tried to string them together as best as they could, and quite a few times it kind of takes you out of it, because it's like very start stop. Like the transitions sometimes are kind of abrupt, and some parts also can't help but feel kind of draggy because they want to emphasize a certain point, but it just comes at like the wrong time. So the editing isn't as polished as I wanted it to be. My biggest problem though is that the main plots of this movie, it's obviously like these two big story arcs from the manga or the anime, and they're just kind of put on top of each other very awkwardly. So it doesn't really make sense to me why. But the way these two main story arcs are just kind of put on top of each other, for me, it just kind of confuses the main point of conflict. Like, I don't really know who the main big bad guy is. And quite a few characters don't really fit into this. I mean, like, they really do feel shoehorned in, and they don't really have a lot to do, and they don't really have much to them. It really just kind of feels like fan service sometimes, because you can't have a Samurai X movie without Sano or Megumi or Yahiko, but in the end they're just there. But never mind all that, because Rurouni Kenshin is a really, really good movie. Hopefully it leads to more serious anime adaptations, and while I know that's not necessarily possible because of how Rurouni Kenshin is so grounded in reality, I'm just hoping that more directors will approach anime and cartoons like through a more serious lens. And I think this is a great starting point if you want to get into anime in general, because Rurouni Kenshin is one of the best animes out there, and this movie is a really, really good adaptation, so check it out. Alright, so that's my review of Rurouni Kenshin. Have you guys seen it? What do you think about it? Whether you loved it or you hated it, whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.